Thanks for joining us from the Ohio AgNet Voice with the News You Trust studio, sponsored by BASF, where the performance of Veltima fungicide can take your best results even further. Well, Dale has an update from Ohio corn and wheat growers.
Joining me is Luke Crumley, Director of Public Policy and Sustainability for Ohio Corn and Wheat. Luke, what's happening in the E15 ethanol discussion arena?
Governor DeWine has continued to be at the table and driving this conversation with 7 other governors, forcing the conversation because no one wants a state-by-state or region-by-region approach to fuel. We want consistency. We want low prices everywhere. That's really important that Governor DeWine has stayed engaged in that fight, and we are leveraging their voices. Folks need to understand there are other macro trends happening. While we've been focused on the Ohio budget and on budget reconciliation, there are 49 other states, one of whom just took a really big action that we may not have expected. And if you've never heard of Gavin Newsom in California and thought positive things about him, there's some reason to celebrate, because in the California state budget that just got passed, they included millions of dollars for programmatic support to allow CARB, the California Air Resources Board, to move toward adoption of E15 in California. And that's huge. California is already our biggest market for flex fuel because of their air quality standards. This new opportunity really being pursued for consumer prices, huge opportunity here, huge win from Governor Newsom and his team and the state legislature in California. If we open up California, which is the only state where you can't buy E15 at all, it's the only state, that is a huge market opportunity. Really good news for corn farmers. There's still obviously work to be done. They have to work through the rules process still. But that is the beginning of a really great market opportunity for corn growers.
And thank you, Luke Crumley, Director of Public Policy and Sustainability for Ohio Corn and Wheat.
President Trump said late last week that Canada will face higher duties for some products beginning next month due to the Canadian government's decision to retaliate against U.S. duties applied earlier this year. The president also took the opportunity to reiterate his call for greater market access for U.S. dairy producers, one of his top peeves against Canada. Well, how might the recently announced Renewable Fuel Standard proposal play a role in USDA's look at U.S. soybean and corn supply and demand estimates this month?
In a USDA July domestic balance sheet full of June report data, such as quarterly stocks and crop acreage, Chief Economist Seth Meyer believes one of the more significant contributors to this month's WASDE is
trying to get a handle on what we think the impacts on soybean crush, soybean oil are due to the renewable fuel standard that EPA released between the June WASDE and this July WASDE.
With both soybean crush and bean domestic use up in current marketing year forecast, and also reflected in 2025-26 projected soybean oil biofuel domestic disappearance. As for U.S. corn S&D and the latest renewable fuel standard proposal, Myers says the impact is perhaps not as well known, as
the constraint continues to be on ability to consume higher level blends, so not large changes in expectations about ethanol.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
A recent study finds that drought can lengthen heat waves if those two features occur at the same time. Research team members found that drought increased the average duration of heat waves by 13 to 48 hours at most of the weather stations included in the study. Nationally, heat waves during drought had an average of about 9 more hours of extreme heat compared to heat waves that occur in non-drought conditions. The markets, they're next.
Friday, July 25th is Recovery Ohio's Mental Health Day at the Ohio State Fair. Visit the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, the Department of Insurance, and other state agency booths. Join us on Friday, July 25th for Recovery Ohio's Mental Health Day at the Ohio State Fair. We'll see you there.
Be aware, ticks are there. As you head outdoors, remember to avoid tall grass, wear light-colored full-coverage clothing, and use EPA-registered repellent. Be sure to thoroughly check for ticks after you head in for the day. If you find any ticks, remove them carefully with tweezers and watch for symptoms such as fever, headache, or rash. For more information on ticks and tick bite prevention, head over to ohio.gov/ticks.
The market's brought to you by Seed Consultants, simply better performance. Online at seedconsultants.com. At the Board of Trade, July corn $4.12 3/4, up 9 3/4. December corn $4.18, up 5 3/4. July soybeans $9.97, down 7. November soybeans $10.07, down 1/4 cent. July wheat $5.34, down 6 3/4. At the Mercantile Exchange, August cattle $219.35, down $2.85. July hogs $106.70, down 2 cents. September feeder cattle $319.57, down $5.82. This is the Ohio AgNet.